Good morning, spaceman. Good morning, everyone that's watching on YouTube. Good morning, everyone that's watching on Twitch. Welcome on board. I'm Captain Collins, and today we're going to talk about X4 Tides of Avarice, the next upcoming DLC for X4 Foundations. We have a few topics that are right here on the screen, but I will not talk about them just by myself. I have a very, very special guest. Hello, Bernd. Good morning.
Hello.
Welcome, Bernd. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're talking, of course, about X4 Tides of Avarice today. We also have some other topics that we just saw. We're also going to talk about the upcoming update 5.0, the updates right now 4.20 that just released today. Thank you very much for that, just before the Christmas holidays.
Yeah, the 4.20 was much longer in development than it was intended to be, but yeah, it's always when these large updates like 4.0 take a lot of aftermath afterwards. So yeah,
that's right. And to give people already a view at the stuff that we can expect, I will start to run exactly the gameplay. So now we also have something visual, nice, and where we can look at. And there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment. We're definitely talking about the DLC, but that is for like in 10 minutes, let's say. And we're starting about the patches and the updates that you're doing. And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the recent change that you did in 4.2. Especially, we saw that there was a lot going on in missions and OOS combat, out-of-system combat.
There's always fixing going on, if you will, and especially with trying to balance the observation in high attention, low attention, which is basically in-system and out-of-system fights closer together. That's like an always ongoing process, and we're always trying to improve that. So yeah, that's incremental, and it's also happening in 4.20.
Was there something that lead you to reworking the combat, especially out of system? Like you changed some DPS calculations. You said in your changelog there were some issues with AI and UI.
Oh, I don't even know. There are some of those things in the 4.20 changelog are so technical and so in depth that I don't even know about all of them. I know about some bugs related to the AI scripts of ships and usually both in high attention and low attention. And as you said, trying to bring the two closer together, that was a big focus for the whole 4.20 thing. But there's so many little things and little improvements that I really don't have the full overview over all of them.
Just to be sure or be clear, we're mixing in here some of my questions and also a lot of community questions already in here. We had about a week time to gather community questions, but I will just keep on asking, like they're coming all from here. So credits to everyone that posted some questions, either it was on Twitter or in Discord or wherever. Thank you so much for that. And one of the questions that especially also is for patches is if there are plans to enhance the coordinated attack feature, for example, stay at a specific range.
Well, yeah, staying at a specific range, if that is not working well, then that sounds more like a bug fix, and that sounds like something we would love to do. If you have examples or cases where it's not working, you're always invited to send us demonstrations, because this is so complex. There are so many parameters when these kind of things happen that it's always good to get feedback about what's working or what's not working as intended. But specific new behaviors like bombardments or complete new changes, I'm more skeptical. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but that's not planned at the moment, at least.
You're working at the Fidelity Super Resolution, right? So you also talked about that on some German streams. This is still something you're implementing, right?
Yes. Yes, it's actually was originally planned a little bit earlier for I think 4.10 or 4.20 already, but it turned out to be a little bit more complicated to get it working. But we are confident that it will be part of 5.0. I've tested it myself quite a bit already, and it's especially useful when you try to run the game in higher resolution than what your hardware normally can support, obviously. And that doesn't mean it's just for low-end systems. It helps on lower-end systems with full HD or normal resolutions, and on very high-end system it can still help with extreme resolutions like 4K and beyond.
That is only the graphical side of X4. What about the CPU and RAM side of X4? There, like the calculations that are going on in the system. You're also working on that. We often see that in the changelogs.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if the game is, it's always focused to get the performance, improvements, and what limits the performance in any particular situation is always either the GPU or the CPU, and it is impossible to predict it. So it's so complex. It can depend on the game situation. It can depend on the graphics settings. So it really, it really depends a lot. Or it's a very dynamic thing, and we can only try to improve both sides of the equation as good as we can. In general, of course, X4 is more CPU. It's more hard on the CPU compared to other games, which is the reason why people have to improve that part, in particular when you compare it to games that are not simulating an entire universe in the background, of course, but especially with very high-end graphic settings on very high resolution, then something like FSR can help a lot.
Another thing you're fixing at the moment are a lot of mission-related stuff, and also a lot of missions that are already out there. Does that mean you're not working that much on new missions?
Oh no, I mean, this is of course not really a focus for the upcoming update. I mean, we have, as you know, the new expansion, Tides of Avarice, which has a lot of new story, and new story means new missions, obviously. So that's the main focus of the team. But while they do that, they always try to improve also generic missions. Like sometimes they find bugs, sometimes they just find things that are not perfectly presented, and these kind of things we try to improve while we go. That's really that's what we always do. It's an incremental development, really.
Okay, yeah, you're already talking about Tides of Avarice, and I think we should also start now with Tides of Avarice. Let me just put the trailer on here. Oh, can you hear that? I guess you can also hear it with the music. And
you definitely have to hear the music. The music is so nice. You have to play it loud.
Let's play it loud. While this is running its only music, let's just start. Tell us about Tides of Avarice in general a little bit before we dive into that. What do we see
Tides
here?
Of Avarice. What do we see here? Oh, well, this is the casino. But yeah, don't. It's cut so quickly that what we see there changes all the time. No, this is of course only the first teaser about the new expansion, and as the name suggests, it has a lot to do with the conflict between extreme wealth and poverty, basically, in the system. So Avarice is not just the name of a system, it's also a little bit the name of the story, or at least of one story. And it also has a lot to do with piracy. So there's really two stories woven into this expansion. Obviously, every X4 expansion is also about what it adds to the universe, because of course you can play you can add it on top of an existing save game, like you will probably do with the save game that I just saw. All of this huge wealth. So some people will only want to play it like that, but of course we encourage people to try new game starts because this expansion will also bring 2 new game starts, and they will help you to get into these new areas and onto the new story. But like with the 2 other expansions, Split Vendetta and
Cradle of Humanity.
Cradle of Humanity, thank you. I always have the problem that I'm jumping between the German and the English titles. Last week I had problems remembering the German titles, and now the other way around. Yeah, but with both expansions as well, it's always adding to the story. It adds a game start that leads you into the story in a perfect way, but you can also play the game from any other perspective in any other race or faction, and then find the story as well.
There are 2 new game starts in, you said that already. We already experienced that in Cradle of Humanity, that these game starts can have, these are not like the game starts we know before, that lead very quickly into a combined game. How does it work with Tides of Avarice? Would you miss out on something if you not do both game starts?
You miss out always with every game start. If you don't try it out, you miss out on a little bit. But we try to make the each plot basically as a module, which can be also played when you come from the outside. But of course, there is always this first module which leads you into the story, which depends on the game start. So yes, you miss out a little bit, but it's depending on what story it is, it's only a little bit, really. I mean, it's impossible to completely play all of the stories in a single game start, because they are partially designed for different characters. So I don't want to give away too much about the exact situation that you start in, but just like in Split Vendetta, where you had this very unique game start where your ship was completely broken at the beginning, and you are in a spacesuit, there will be something similar in Tides of Avarice, and then this part is obviously unique to the game start.
Okay. We do get new factions in Tides of Avarice, but we do not get new races. Is that right?
That's right, yes. There's it's a new area of space, and what's unique about it is more in the economy and the fact that it has this natural phenomenon we call the wave, which dictates really everything else that's going on in this system. So it's in that sense it's a little bit more about the setting and exploration as well. A little bit maybe like the Home of Light expansion, well a little bit maybe, but if you have ever played that for X Rebirth, that was also more about setting and environment than. But on the other hand, it also has this really great story, and it's all connected very deeply. It's connected always to the economy, because what these factions are doing in this new system is of course also rather unique. It has a lot to do with recycling. I'm sure we are going to talk about that a little bit later. And that again is in parts only possible, or it's better possible in this system as well. So it all has something to do with each other.
What is the flood in X4 Tides of Avarice?
Yeah, we call it the wave, or
the wave. I'm sorry.
In German, Flut. Yeah, it is also with the tides of Avarice. It refers to the same thing, of course. It's a sun that bursts a huge wave of mass through a system on a regular interval, and I think you can see this already in the teaser at the very end. You can see this event. And the event is so massive and destructive that everybody who lives in this system has to adapt to it. And there are different ways to do that, but certainly stations constructed there need an additional protection, or else they will be blown to pieces eventually. Also, when you just fly through it with a ship, it's really dangerous. You have to protect yourself. There's a warning usually, and that's also again at the root of the economy. This sun is unique because it's very powerful, and the systems are the sectors are very close to the sun, so that gives it a very high energy output also, which is cool for this recycling in particular, which is very energy hungry. But it comes with this with this big risk, and that gives the story a different dynamic and makes the system very interesting.
You will have shields that can shield you.
Yeah, it's a special shield. It's not just the usual. You plug something on your ship and it shields you against attacks up to a certain point. But this is much more powerful, and therefore it needs a special shield that is designed particular for this natural phenomenon, if you will. And the shield requires also some fuel, and this is it's complicated. I don't want to spoil too much.
Okay, I heard that the first time. If we have these kind of shields already on our ship, do we need other shields too, or are they also against weapons?
Well, ships are usually not protectable against it, so the ships have to be careful. They have to. That's why it's also it isn't a constant phenomenon, right? It only happens in certain intervals, and the AI ships, as well as the player himself, they have to take precautions whenever this happens. So that's really the price you pay when you build in the system, and when you fly through it. You always have to be on the outlook for this event. But the stations they get this special shield, which is of course much more powerful and is stationary.
And there's a really interesting question from the community. Since the hazard in one of the DLC sectors damages stations and will require special shield modules for that station to survive, if the Xenons somehow make it to that sector, will their stations be exempt from the damage, or will they have a shield module too? Or will they just not expand in that sector?
I'm pretty sure they will learn their lesson when they try. They don't have access to these shields, that's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about that economy aspect, because that's also very interesting. You already talked a little bit about it. It's about recycling. What exactly do you mean with recycling?
Well, there's two new ways to basically get another resource. Like normally the whole economy is based off of ore and silicon as the main minerals that run everything on top. And now I always thought it's really the game needs recycling, because it just makes sense. You see so many wrecks in the game when stations are destroyed, when capital ships are destroyed, when even little ships are destroyed, and it just makes sense in that setting, for realism's sake, that all of that material will be reused, and we always wanted to do that, but of course it requires a lot of new AI and new tech. So that's what 5.0 will be adding to the normal game, and the DLC basically builds on top of it a little bit more. So with 5.0 you get already tug ships that are able to tug small wrecks, so S&M ship wrecks that you can find normally in the game, but also in wreck fields sometimes. They can be basically towed away with the Manticore ship, which has this special tug weapon, turret on it. And then there is also a special DLC ship that is able to cut larger wrecks of capital ships and also stations into those cubes that you saw in the teaser. Which basically have an even higher density, and which can then also be tucked by those same ships over to a new type of refinery module, which is then on the same level like an ore or silicon refinery. It basically takes these cubes or wrecks from S&M ships as an input, and processes them into the same things that you normally get out of ore or silicon refineries.
will the wreckages that we have at the moment in the game have a different despawn time than the ones we got at the moment?
We were just talking about that today. I think so. It's all not set in stone yet. The game isn't done, right? But I believe, yes. It becomes a economic resource, and therefore the balancing is of course different. As in the past, it was just decorative. Really, it is more or less the purpose was that it looks nice and it looks believable, that things don't just disappear. But of course, on the other hand, the game has to clean up some stuff. Yeah, otherwise, you would potentially get big performance problems and also graphical problems when there's too much stuff in a place where there's constantly fights going on. So we have to find a good balance to do this better. But there are now NPC factions that do collect wrecks, and they are looking for wrecks. So yeah, it totally makes sense for us to increase the time they have to find new ones.
Oh, and one question on top of that. These tug ships, are they able to jump? So can they go through a jump gate?
Oh, of course they can go through jump gates, yes. The Manticore in particular is not very big. You could see it in the teaser. That's the one with the 3 beams in front of it. This is an M ship, and not very big at all. So yes, it can. They can bring it really like a mining ship can bring ore from faraway systems. These tug ships can bring the recycled hull. No, not the recycled one. It's the raw hull parts over to the to this station. You can build it in. You can still build it in different systems. As I said, it's a part of 5.0 as well. And there, of course, you do not have the new Avarice system in particular, which has this super bright sun. But if in the DLC, that's a special opportunity to recycle there, because this is the system with the extremely bright sun and high energy output.
Okay, before we go on with more different ships, just a simple question there. Why especially Avarice?
Well, it's just avarice, of course. It's a word and the habit of the Teladi that plays very nicely into this conflict between wealthy and poor in this story, because it's, as I said, the natural phenomenon forces a lot of poor people to work in these harsh conditions, in dangerous conditions. So the player, when you play the story, will also see that, and there are others that potentially benefit from this. So it really is showing a little bit that greed is not necessarily always a good thing, even though I know most X4 players love the Teladi and their sympathetic greed, but everything can be too much. And I think the story shows you something of that.
So enough about economy. Let's talk about the good things, the big things, the new ships. Tell us a little bit about new ship types that we can expect, maybe some that you're really excited about.
There's a couple of really cool ones. We already mentioned that there are new factions in these new systems, and they have their own fighter ships and their own larger destroyer as well. But the really unique ships, I think you could already see a little bit of it in the trailer. There's a really exciting big fighting capital ship. I don't want to say too much about it, because it's also a story, a unique ship in the story of the game. You have to do something to build it up. It's not just a blueprint that you get and you build it, but it's actually a more complex task of getting such a ship. That's something we wanted to do. Another really cool ship, and that's the other side of the Avarice thing again. Of course, where there's these poor people, there's also wealth, and of course a very nice way to show the wealth is a yacht. This I think you can see a little bit of this already in the teaser as well. There's this is something we haven't had in X games so far. A really luxurious ship with a pool and a bar and a really cool interior. That's definitely a first for us.
I think you also dropped some names there. We heard Earl King, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a very curious question from the community is, what happens when the Earl King, for example, gets destroyed? Can you build it again? Can we have multiple ones?
You don't simply have a blueprint, that's for sure. And that's true not just for the Earl King. These two ships that I mentioned, they are special, they are unique, they are also appearing in the story. So you're not simply getting a blueprint and can mass produce them. But yes, we do make sure that you have a possibility of getting them. In other words, there is some, I don't want to spoil the story, but there is something special to the ship which makes it impossible to simply mass produce it. And you will have to play a little story in order to not just build it, but also later make it fully functional. It's
We can expect new designs for old ships, right?
It's not just new designs for old ships. It's better designs for the Pyramid in particular. Yes, this is something we put in 5.0 for everybody. We were not so happy with some of the Pyramid ships anymore, and we wanted to really give them a facelift, and it's not just visual. They are new ships, and if you install 5.0, then basically the Pyramid factions or the shipyards that build these ships can now also build these ships, but ships don't simply change. It's not a replacement. So these new types will be available, and the in-game factions will start to use them as well. But it's a gradual process how they then be replaced. They have a slightly different balancing from the existing ships, and sure, the Terrans drove everything up a notch, so maybe that will be also the case here. But the balancing is not final yet anyway, so I don't. It's not just about not spoiling it; it's actually not even set in stone yet.
Okay. Since you started right now, is there a timeline for other vanilla faction ships to be remodeled, re-released, maybe a little bit polished?
We would love to, but no, I cannot promise anything. I mean, this is of course also a cost thing. It's extremely expensive to make these new ships, and giving them away in a free upgrade is not something I can promise that we will do more often. The Pyramid were special, and we wanted to really focus on that. This is one of the biggest features in 5.0. So
you're starting now to introduce also more rooms into ships, right?
Well, we are experimenting with it. I don't know, the video I think shows a couple of new interiors. We have cool new rooms. They are used on stations, and we could potentially also use them on ships. Of course, the new ships have new interiors as well, but we wanted to experiment with some rooms in ships, but that's also not set in stone yet. It's a little bit complicated with more fundamental features in an expansion or a free update that is completely save game compatible. We always have to be careful, because everything we do can potentially break stuff already for the existing save games, and so we have to become a little bit more careful, especially now with 5.0 compared to the earlier patches, the earlier updates. The very drastic changes are getting a little bit less, and we have to do more careful balancing and try to avoid breaking the game.
Maybe we can get a little bit back to the story part of Tides of Avarice. I would like to talk a little bit more about that. We have you talked about poverty on one side, and I guess the really wealthy part on the other side. But we didn't talk about what we actually expected when we first saw it, and that is the part Ahoy. What does the pirates do? We all know from the last interview that you like pirating. This is something that you really like in your games.
Yeah, or just in general illegal activities. Yeah, smuggling and not just trading and building, but having the better paying but dangerous sides to the economy. And yes, that was indeed a focus for Tides of Avarice as well. As I said, there's also a piracy-based storyline, which is that the other side and also the other game start, it builds a little bit up on existing factions. So it's not this revolutionary new faction that changes the whole game. Again, we try to really do more smaller things here, but it's a super cool story, and they have also a lot of unique new assets. As I said, in interiors, puzzles, like everything that you expect from a whole expansion with new stories.
Can you already tell us something about the relationship maybe that these factions will have with the other factions?
Of course, yeah. I mean, as I said, they are not introducing completely new factions. It's more like what they are doing is changing, and their AI setup, and there are new groups within existing factions. And sure, they are pirates. They are doing they are robbing others. They are trying to steal, and you as a player can now act more with them, not just against them. But the design is, or the intention is, that you always have both sides. It should be interesting both to join them or see them as a friend, and or at least interact with them on that level, that you dock on their stations and play missions for them potentially. But it is also it should also be interesting as a new enemy in the game, that you see a more wider variety of enemy ships that you can potentially attack and benefit from. I wanted to have more valuable targets, if you will. So dangerous but valuable.
Just seeing a few questions coming from chat right now. Will scrapping ships be available for all sizes? So you were talking about S&M ships that you can tow in. And you also talked about station parts, but you did not talk about LXL ships.
Yeah, L and XL ships can be cut into those same blocks like stations. So you the DLC, the expansion, brings this special ship that is able to cut station as well as capital ship racks into those little blocks, and then the tuck ships can tuck them also in the same way like M&S racks. It's a little bit more compact. You saw those cubes that were transported there, and they have a high density. So it's really a measure of compacting a large station down into smaller, higher density objects. Yeah, because we cannot really tow around an entire station through a gate. Yeah, it's a little inspired by scrapyards on Earth, which really put cars into these shapes as well.
So we can now go into these Xenon sectors and get all of these K wreckages that are flying around there.
Well, if you survive, sure, you can try. It's a little bit dangerous, I think.
Another question out of chat. Will we have other resources than energy and scrap? He's talking about the blocks, I guess. In new sectors, which will make it worthwhile to risk losing a ship to be there.
As I said, it's a bit of an exploration area, Avarice, and if he's talking about the systems in the expansion, there's Avarice is really one system. There is another system as well. It's not as huge as the original the last two expansions, but it's still a big area, and we want to make it an exploration area where there's interesting things to find. So sure, but it's not economically the main resource is this recycling part. That's the new part. There is a faction, and the faction has to survive, right? But yes, it's of course different from the Terrans with their established planets, and with the Terrans we were also kind of forced to make their economy similar to what was there already established in the X3 games. Now with this faction, it shows the story of these people, how they had to survive under these harsh conditions while they were disconnected, but they don't have to have a completely self-sustained sustained economy, completely separated from the rest of the universe.
It sounds very much like X Rebirth and what was it called? I forgot. The Freeze, right?
The look of it, yeah. The Freeze, of course, had this very dominant sun in the center as well. But this one is much worse than that, especially, of course, because of this natural phenomenon. But yeah, it's also much more intense from the sunlight, also economically, because the sunlight. That's something we already introduced in the Terran system, that when you got closer to our sun, so with the Mercury sector, for example, that the output of the sun there is also already much higher than in normal systems, and here we go even a step further than that.
Do you ever thought about something like a domestic market, something like wares that are just get used?
Yeah, of course. We actually, this is also something that we had to a degree and still have to a smaller degree in X4. In X3, for example, the trading stations also consume wares, and but in X3, of course, you cannot compare that, because there the whole manufacturing process was completely separated. So in X4, since the manufacturing is so dominant now that it requires so many resources, that the rest, this kind of consumption that a trading station might do, is completely disappears behind it. We are not going to completely rebalance the game now. This is a real because that would then also affect all of the NPC factions, clearly, and that is something that again is super hard to do in a safe game compatible way that still works with everybody's very different universe by this point. You already mentioned the example of terraforming. This is more like a player-centric version of changing the demand. If you have built your own economy already and basically have reached the point in the game where you are not just a normal player anymore, but have built your own empire and are an entire economy, then this can be seen a little bit like a solution to this problem. If you don't want to invest in war, then terraforming can work for that.
I just throw it in here. Any plans on more ways to interact with the cog? So when I think of cog, I come there from X2. I stopped playing X2 because the cog were so powerful that that I had a hard time with them, and now they're just like space flies.
Oh, okay. So you want them to be more dangerous?
Some people are asking for that.
Okay, so make a poll. If people want them to be more dangerous, we can make them more dangerous. I mean, this is always for every single person that says one thing, there's probably others that say the exact opposite. That's always the problem. I mean, if you can make a poll and people agree and say, yeah, we want this, maybe we can talk about it. As I said, we will not make massive, super big changes and make one race now suddenly 10 times stronger. That would really upset the economy and everything. But I'm up for negotiations.
I see a lot of please, yes, pleases, and yes from a lot of people in chat. But we keep it there. I also heard a lot of demands for destroyers, cog destroyers. I'm just throwing it in there so that you heard about it. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, it's maybe there's also a bias here with your viewers in particular. I mean, if we seriously do this, we should probably make a poll and or a survey. We did this. I think the last survey is already more than a year ago. That's really maybe a good idea to repeat and ask such questions.
I remember that survey. Yes, right.
Yeah, and if you only ask people on one stream, then that can be a very skewed impression. We really have to ask, as many people as possible, of course.
That's right. Anything you want to add to the Tides of Avarice that we have not talked about? I don't know if we have not talked about something. We had ships and economy. Is there something else?
Check. Yeah, we had chips and economy. We had the recycling. We did talk about the story. I mean, it's of course it's so many things. The little details when you look at the systems stuff to find. But on the other hand, we don't want to give away exact details about the things you can find there. But okay. Let me see what else we have. It's a full expansion of the X universe. Let's leave it at that. People can find lots of things in it. It has new ships, it has new sectors, and especially it has a really cool new story.
Nice. And we can spend our time in the casino playing casino games, right?
Yes, I think there may be a little surprise there, but I don't want to spoil that as well. There's a casino, that's for sure.
I want to address the big elephant in this room. And
I know what
my question is, why are you so suddenly quiet about the Multiverse Online seasons?
Oh, that one. I thought you were talking about the...
No, we're not talking. We're not talking about the other orange elephant somewhere else.
The swimming elephant. Oh, no, it's there's this we just still experimenting with it. We had an internal alpha with it. We tested it with a closed group of people, and we found that it's just not good enough yet for a public release. And now we are working on some improvements. If those improvements are good enough, then we might be releasing it together with 5.0, or we might be releasing it later. I cannot promise anything, but our goal is definitely to release something once it's in a good enough state. And but yeah, it's a bit complicated. I mean, it would be great on the one hand to test it gradually. This as an online feature is always this problem, right? If it is so and we release it and then a couple of people try it out and say, nah, it sucks, or something isn't perfectly balanced yet, then it's very hard to get those people back again later, right? It's not we cannot take it back, work on it again, and there's a lot of people that only give it one chance, so we want to be careful and do it right. Even if it is just an addition to the universe, it has a different momentum being this social interaction with other players. There is a chance that some people will start playing again that haven't played for a while because their friends are now playing this online thing. So yeah, we want to do it right, and we will have to see when it's ready for release.
You testing that with players, or you testing that internally?
It is people from DevNet, from our
okay.
So it's of course players, but players that it's a relatively small group at this point, and we can dial it up a little bit when we think it gets past that stage. I mean, there's multiple aspects of what you want to test. Obviously, once the group gets larger, then the dynamics of how people behave also change a little bit. But it's not really, or it's mainly at this point at least, it's not really the technical problems that we run into. It's more like game balancing and story design. That
good. We're not talking about the swimming elephant. That's fine.
No, it's fine. You can ask. It's an obvious question.
For now, we're going into some more from chat. Like, for example, will the new factions get their own unique weapons and turrets, maybe?
There is something, but there's not a lot of new weapons. And again, it's not, the whole balancing is not set in stone yet. I don't want to say, I don't want to promise anything that we cannot hold. So no comment at this point.
Okay, that one is especially because we're talking about pirating boarding mechanics. Are you touching that?
More on a balancing level maybe, but not as in changing the gameplay entirely. We want to make it more. We want, as I said before, these pirates should be, well, they should be interesting and exciting targets as well. So for that, you need them to behave differently from the established pirates, as in when you attack them, how they behave and what you can get out of them. But we are not going to change how boarding works or something like that.
Yaki, will they see any kind of stories in Tides of Avarice?
No, not really. That's at least that's not the pirate faction we are mainly working with. No, because that's they are more closely related to the Terran storyline.
There is another pirate faction that is a little bit more related to Teladi. Maybe that one.
Maybe.
It's like their colors in their name. Okay. Okay. He's smiling.
No, wait for it.
Okay.
I think we are saying way too much for the game story already. Okay. Anyway.
Do you like Borns?
Totally. They are so friendly creatures. I love them, yeah.
We need to solve the mystery once and for all. Is Brennan's Triumph the same sector as Alpha Centauri?
Oh, that's a question for Helge. I wouldn't comment on that. Without that's too risky.
Last question from chat. This is a bit of a personal question. I don't know if you're prepared for that. What originally caused Bernd Lehan to become a developer?
Oh, I liked programming. I started really with programming on computers in the 80s already at school, and I just loved it. And then this at the beginning it wasn't really games yet. It was more demo programming. So trying to get as many sprites on screen and animate stuff. That was just super cool. I think that's a typical programmer career. And then I got together with a good friend who was a graphic artist, and then the logical next step was to make games. So yeah, it's a long process of learning and.
You started really early making games, right? You remember the first machine you made games on?
Let me check. This computer there, is it in focus? This is a TI-994A. This is not my original one anymore. It's an old home computer system, which was even before the C64 that maybe some people know. But this thing was actually in some regards more advanced because it already had a 16-bit CPU, but didn't really get very popular. So, but that's what I started on as a kid. Then of course I had to sell it, and many years later, I got one on a flea market again. So that's why I have one here.
And from that machine to the newest machine. Maybe you want to show us something where X4 runs on?
This one, I was teasing it before. Okay, let me show you.
Take a look at that.
That's really crazy when you compare this little thing. The cool thing is it also works without a cable. But it was just this is running X4 at the moment, and it's so small and it's so powerful. It's really cool, and you can have your whole game library with you. And yeah, and it's really they are really doing a really great job with controls and everything. It even has now it's hard to. It even works with touchscreen now because it's emulating a mouse. You have these things here that work like a trackpad. You have of course the normal gamepad type of control. It's really very cool. You can play all kinds of very different games with it.
So for everyone that does not recognize the machine, it's a Steamdeck. It's coming out next year. Yes. And it's a computer in your hand.
Yes, it is a very powerful PC with gaming PC basically. You can hear that it's making some noise, so it does have. But yeah, I mean, this is not final hardware. Maybe it won't be making much noise anymore when it comes out. But we are testing the whole gameplay experience on it, and the cool thing is, of course, that you can play the X games on the road. Yeah, I will definitely make a couple of pictures of this when we are a bit further with testing, and when Valve is a little bit further with releasing it. But I really like it very much. It's so cool to have your Steam library in on the road with you.
There you go, X4 in your hands. And I got one more question that I would like to give you. I don't know if you ever had the chance, but would you like to ask the community something that they can answer you underneath the video?
Yeah, these kind of things that we would make surveys for, the things that we were talking about, like what do you guys want most, want us to change most? Of course this is not really a question for individual comments, it's more a question for a poll. So like it is always interesting for us to get an idea of quantities, like how many people want what, do you play the game more for trading, or do you play the game more for economy? Do you play the game more for getting new pirate content, for example, or would it be better for you personally to get peaceful station building, for example, as in contrast to that? It's for us always important to find out where to best invest in the future, like when we continue developing the game.
Yeah, so maybe you can answer that maybe in the comments, and that will give you an idea on what to ask then in these polls. Could also be a way to do it. So thank you very much. Wow, that was a long road through this. But I enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it too. We always have a awesome community around X4. Please close that with your words and say what you want to say to us.
Yeah, no, the community is really great, and that's really also the reason why we are always motivated to continue working on it. We always get really great feedback from people that write emails, people on the forums. That's really what drives us as a team to continue the development. So thank you guys very much, and you in person for covering us. It's really cool. Thank you very much, and looking forward to continue this and talk again.
I do my best. I really enjoy talking to you every single time. Thank you, Bernd. I would say goodbye. Maybe you will stick around a little bit and hear what we got to say afterwards. After this official part, enjoy your evening with your family. I know that your son is also playing a lot of X4. you can join him there. Thank you, Bernd.
Too much video games. Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye. Yeah, you too. Bye.